I think I just got the email.
Oh, I got it. Okay. It's a little bit looks a little bit laggy from my point of view, but anyway. Uh, Hello everybody. This is our second live podcast, and it was very impulsive actually. We just set up to get Ryan and I in a stream.
So, hello. Hopefully, somebody can hear me.
I think they can. I think we got this figured out as a real butt fuck of a way I had to do it because my sound card is kind of complicated. And where Ryan's on a different side of the country, getting
Hi there,
us.
Greenfields. Can you hear us okay?
Oh, hey, Greenfields, Greenfelds. We got a user.
Greenfields.
See, I didn't think we were going to have anyone really because we just kind of spontaneously, popped it off there. But
We just want to make sure that everything is working. And since we're on live checking that, we figured we might as well do a podcast.
perfect. They can hear us both. So we just figured like if anybody, we didn't put out any notice. So worst case scenario, the video will be up tomorrow and people can watch it then. But this is going to be the new way that we do this show. It's going to be live, and not only is it going to be live, but now that we got it figured out how we're going to do it, we're going to make it consistent the same time every week. So for sure, it's going to be on Mondays at 5:30 p.m. PST time. So every Monday at 5:30 PST time, we're going to be doing a live episode, and it's possible that we're going to be doing this even more than once a week. Now that we kind of got this figured out, because it's just so easier for me on my end to do it this way. I don't have to do a whole there's hours and hours and hours of stuff I don't have to do doing it this way. And best of all, we get to interact with you guys. So hello Greenfelds, hello the LIKP, Jamie 70 full, Breaking Glass, Spike Hunter. Hello everybody, welcome to the show. So what we're going to be doing, and this is one of the more exciting parts of how this is going to go from now on. So it's all going to be live. It's going to be every Monday at 5:30 PST time. But the great thing is that we're going to be doing all the user submissions this way. So I got a whole backlog of submissions from like Christmas time, and we're just going to systematically start going through all of them. And it's perfect because I don't have to do all the editing and upload them and stuff like that. We're just going to read them. Sometimes I'll read them right from the email. Sometimes I'll read it beforehand and get the gist of it and just tell it. But that's what we're going to do.
And don't worry about the times. Once we figure out exactly what we're doing and how we're doing it, and we make the adjustments as needed, we'll post everything up so everybody knows. And once we get into a routine, then it'll be easy from everybody or for everybody.
For sure. I even thought about putting a section on the website actually for the live podcast that will, just activate every Monday, and people can just pop on there if they like. But I like that everybody gets an email or a notification that, once we do this, so that, you're aware. So, we're going to start doing some user submissions. User submissions is really going to be the focal point now. I mean, we got a lot to catch up on, but we're going to be coming through them so fast now. We might do 1, 2, or 3 per episode. So if anybody ever had a story they wanted to send in, and I apologize that I haven't gotten the older ones done yet, but we're going to get them done now. We're going to start going through all the ones that were sent in since like last Christmas. And so let's start with, I have a story here. This one's not on the website, by the way. This is what I mean. I have like 70 flagged emails of submissions that I have to get through. None of these are on the website. So this one comes from Shay. Okay, and she submitted this on October 10th. So I'm just kind of picking at random, and I'm gonna start just unflagging them as I cover them. So I haven't read this story yet. This is gonna be new to me too. So let's see what the story's all about. It says, "Hi guys, I just recently came by your podcast and it's really enjoyable. I have been interested in the paranormal and cryptid side of things for pretty much all of my life, having had a lot of things happen to me, particularly between the age of 10 to maybe 21. Stuff has happened since, but not to the extent of that period. This story does not involve me exactly, but had always kind of blown my mind. I find it weird to think about, even with the amount of shit I kind of dealt with myself. So, from the age of about 4 or 5 till around 11, I spent most of my time at one of my cousin's house. I practically lived there. I'd go to school from there, spend my weekends there. We were inseparable. He was Chuck Norris and I was Van Damme. So this was around 1990, and from then onwards, all they ever had on the TV were horror movies. Hey, it sounds like my house. It was pretty crazy. During the day, Nightmare on Elm Street, number 1 in particular, would be playing. Child's Play, which I was damn terrified of. Critters, Puppet Master. So, the staples of horror, along with every other horror that they could get their hands on. Even The Exorcist. Strangely enough, that didn't bother her. Not until she was a little older. It was great, though. She had an amazing education in horror, thanks to them, and they had lots of fun watching horror. Who doesn't? It's a great thing. So, Shay and her cousin and best bud had a younger brother, and they shared a room. So at night, the 3 of them would stay down there, actually most nights. And the 2 lads and their older sisters, who were not that much older, there were maybe 2 or 3 years between the kids, I guess, and, that helped make them a close-knit family. And anyway, the younger cousin, Damien, he started to tell them about this little man that kept coming into the room at nighttime. And he'd say that it was messing with stuff at the bottom of the beds, and that this would wake him up. And that was probably in around the year 1994, somewhere around there. And it's strange that the memories of him telling Shay this are so strong in her mind. And she said she actually remembers imagining a little man about 2 inches tall, like a little toy army man or something. And it would, they just assumed that this guy, he was just making it up. And they'd jeer him about it, and they'd say stuff, to him. Don't let the little man get you while you're going to sleep or while you're going to the can and stuff like that. Kids, right? And when she was around 9, this was going on. So, she was around 9. But his complaints continued on for, another year or 2. And eventually, Shay's older sister had gone off to high school, and later she would head off to a different high school, and they kind of grew apart. Fast forward 9 years, and Shay is talking to her aunt one day down at her grandfather's. And she hadn't seen him for quite a while, but they were close at heart, and she was comfortable telling her things, knowing things aside from, into paranormal. She was comfortable talking with the paranormal with him. And, she knew that there was no judgment there. So everyone is gone from her house and her aunt's house, and there's no kids anymore. Everyone's out working, college or school. And she hadn't been feeling well, so she decided to take a week off of work and rest up at home. And, she never really had the place to herself, right? I mean, that's the way life goes when you get older and married and have kids. So, her aunt's house was a madhouse. She finally gets a break. She's not feeling well. And anyway, as she's home, taking this time off from work, she began to notice weird things happening. Noises, stuff moving, doors banging. The usual spooky stuff. And later in the week, she was still feeling sick. And she went down to her room to lie down on her bed for a bit. The door was closed, shut. And she heard the handle move. And she turned around and had stopped still, trying to think nothing of it. But she turned back to face the window, but again, the handle moved. And this time she turned around and the door was open. She ran to the doorway, and to the right of her bedroom door was this long, narrow hall with a sharp turn that leads right to the boy's old bedroom. And when she looked down that way, she saw a man about 3 foot high running around the corner and dashing into the boy's room. Right, this is the little boy that the other kid was seeing. So she told Shay that this absolutely terrified her. She was stuck to the one point for what seemed like eternity and eventually got the willpower to run outside, get in the car, and head off somewhere else until she knew people would be back in the house. She didn't want to be there alone. And her fear, thinking and knowing that she saw something in her house, proper and tangible, had a massive effect on her, and they eventually, she got the hell out. And she remembers her aunt telling her, "You must think I'm mad." And Shay was just like, Damien used to tell us about this little man that was always around in his bedroom. And they used to think that he was messing with them, so they tease him about it. But yeah, it was an actual thing. So her aunt actually got to see this after. And that's the story from Shay. And she said that she comes from a pretty fucked up place, a small village in the southeast of Ireland. It's rich with odd things. At least it was when she was growing up there. She got out around the age of 14 years ago. Wouldn't move back, and she's almost 32 years old now. So hey, you're right around my age. And some events that took place in that place as she was growing up had a major impact on her life, like a lot of these stories do for many of us. And anyway, so that is Shay's story, and there's something at the bottom now makes me think it's a he. If you are a he, I've been calling you a she the whole time. I apologize. But yeah, that's Shay's story. So the little man that the little kid saw growing up, the siblings, actually turned out to be true. The aunt saw it when she got older and decided to spend some time alone in her house. So,
well, I was really wondering where the story was coming from, because of course I haven't read this one before either myself, and I can honestly say I'm not very surprised that it's coming out of Ireland. That's we did do an episode on fairies and little people, and in a lot of our research, I don't know how much of it we covered, but in a lot of the research that we did for that show, I came across all kinds of stories that came out of, that part of Europe, mostly Ireland, parts of Britain, Scotland.
Yeah, they got a lot of the fairies and the little people and stuff like that. Actually, do you know what it reminded me of? Even though it's not at all similar, my mother-in-law, she actually, she's got a handful of stories. I actually have them on my website, and it's kind of weird talking about it, knowing who my mother-in-law is and stuff like that. But she swears by this, that she actually woke up one night and there was an incubus in her room, which she described as a very small male like figure with like a giant dick. Right? So yeah, it's really weird for me to talk about, actually.
Well, it's interesting. It's not something that comes up a whole lot anymore, but especially during the Middle Ages and, leading on up to what we call the modern age, a lot of different kinds of paranormal events had a very strong sexual element to it. There was a lot of talk of succubi and incubi, sex demons of the male and female variety, even down to certain myths about Bigfoot.
You don't want to be fucked by Bigfoot.
Well, yeah, and there were some really bizarre tales about Bigfoot and his giant penis. And
Can you
how
imagine?
he would come and abduct young girls from villages. I think the story I'm thinking of in particular was a Native American tale, um, but it's something that gets left out, or it's not included very often in modern retellings of some of these paranormal tales, or even unique modern paranormal events. I find it interesting how the sexual element has kind of disappeared over time. I guess not so much when we're talking about extraterrestrials. Um, there definitely is a sexual element connected there.
Oh, for sure.
Um,
But
and
like, can you imagine if we had a guest? Is like, we had this guest named Henry, and he was raped by Bigfoot. Just fucking, like,
and
that.
maybe that very reason, that very sediment that you just
Well, who would want to admit to
put
that,
across.
right?
Well, exactly.
I mean, he's been
Right.
walking funny for weeks. You know,
For the
he's
last 6 years, his pelvis has never been the same.
he broke his
Just
hip.
can't buy pants to fit. Um, but I think it's an interesting element to add to the story. Now, little people, and I mean, I'm not talking about Vern Troyer and Warwick Davis, but the quintessential folk stories about little people.
Danny DeVito.
Exactly. These stories, they come to us from time immemorial. They've been passed down, at least in British and Western traditions. It'd be very interesting to see how far back we could get some of these tales and stories. But now I've even talked to people from the Philippines, and they have some very specific stories related to little people. And I've spoken to people from who were born and raised in Africa, and different parts of Africa. Africa is a big country, and there's a lot of different cultures from one end of it to the other. And I always find it extremely interesting that across the board, there's a couple of things that always pop up. Every culture has a story about dragons. Every culture has a story about ghosts and spirits. Every culture has some type of vampire. And every culture seems to have stories about fairies or little people. And it has always struck me as such a poignant fact that no matter how absurd stories of little people and fairies might seem to be on the face of it, when you really sit and think about it and consider that some of these stories are hundreds, if not thousands of years old, and range the entire surface of the planet. Cultures separated by hundreds of thousands of years and hundreds of thousands of miles, and they have such similar folklore.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like you said, with the little people from Ireland, right? Like Ireland is really prominent with that. And of course, the Irish came over to Newfoundland, and when we did the story, the podcast on the fairies and stuff like that, a lot of that actually came from Newfoundland. Those particular stories, and there'd be stories where like groups of people, or no, not groups, like a person would be basically led into an alternate dimension full of little people, and I believe that was even a thing with what was the name of that mountain with Hitler?
Untersberg.
Untersberg. Right, there was this whole thing where there was a belief that it was like hollow inside, and there were little people that came from the future and stuff. So there's lots of really interesting stories, but like you said, they span like hundreds of years. Some of these things, stories that have been passed around forever. So before I want to do another fan submitted story, start getting those out there because I feel so guilty after having them sit there for so long. So we just did one there. And I see that a bunch of people have come in since we started. So for everybody who came in since I said hello to the new people, they're all a lot of these are familiar names, of course, but I just want to say hello. And as it happens, I see Spike there. I got a story from Spike recently. Had to do with glasses. Let me see now if I can find that, and we'll do that one.
Austin, the test site. Dinosaur stories always interest me. The ones coming from deeper parts of Africa. I think there's one, what is it called? Like the Moklo Mambe or something like that. It's probably one of the oldest dino / cryptid stories. I do believe that it comes from Africa. As it's described, I think it's some kind of sauropod, like sauropods being the group of dinosaurs, like the brontosaurus and those kinds of things. 4 legs, big body, long tail, long neck, tiny head. I'm not sure of the spelling or even the pronunciation, but I believe it was called the Moklo Mambe. And there are several other stories of strange dinosaur-like cryptids coming out of Africa. I believe there's even one that's what do they call it? A megalotherm. It's one of those giant ancient ice age sloths that
my ancestor.
Your ancestor.
All you had to do was say sloth, and I just ruined your train of thought, didn't I?
No, not at all. I just thought that you had something to say because you said
Oh, no, that was just... I don't even remember saying it. That's the kind of day I had.
There you go.
So, what I want to do, because Spike is here, so I think it'd be cool if we covered... Because this is a story that he sent in. Really,
what do you think, Spike? Should we cover one of your stories there, bud?
I think we should. I actually got a couple from Spike. From Spike to get through. So I did actually read this one a while ago, and I can't remember all of it, so I'm just going to read it from what he sent to me. And by the way, anybody that is in the room that have something that they want to ask or talk about, think about what you want to say. Obviously, while I'm reading it, I can't read what you're saying, but I'll go back, and if there's anything you want me to read, I'll read it after I'm done this story, and that way we can have some interaction going back and forth. All right.
And yes, the supermoon was amazing.
The supermoon. I saw a weird thing with the moon last night. It was...
It's the supermoon is the brightest and biggest it's been in, 30, 40 years?
Yeah, but that's not what was weird to me. What was weird to me, it was bright, and it's... The moon's like kind of white, and the clouds and everything kind of look bluish, grayish, right? And for whatever reason, there was like a halo going around it, tinging on the clouds that was red. I mean red. Like, it was really fucking weird looking. Like, almost like there would have to have been a chemical. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't even evenly distributed. Or, I don't know. It was really weird. I mean, I would have taken a picture, but I know that I wouldn't have had anything but like a overexposed blob. And all I had was my phone, right? But anyway, let's get to Spike's story. So, hi all, I have hit a weird point in my life. I've submitted accounts of the weird things that I've seen over the years. I have never been a religious man. On the contrary, and I don't mean any disrespect to you religious folk, I've always seen you Bible thumpers as crazy, delusional idiots. Okay, no offense, you're a delusional idiot. But anyway, I have a gift of seeing spectral forms. Well, I kind of cheated there.
But not a gift for diplomacy.
Yeah. Or it's my, and this is the interesting part of a story, I think, or it's my glasses that I treated in a ritual to see the unseen. So he had a pair, I remember this is cool. He had a pair of glasses, and he did a ritual with them. And his new pair has been accidentally broken by him standing on them. So obviously he didn't like his new pair. So anyway, luckily he keeps his prescription sunglasses in his glove box, along with a bunch of weird things, hunting knives, 10 meters of rope, duct tape, for when you want to kidnap someone, camping supplies, the rest of my tent is in the trunk, and my old pair of glasses. So it was a Saturday morning, 7:42 a.m., August 10th, 2016, at work. A normal work day, except for the idiot with a gun who came in. And he said he's been seeing odd humanoid shadows all day since he broke his glasses. And he took this, this other pair, I guess the ritual-induced pair. An especially large shadow was hanging around one older gentleman at the checkout. So he's seeing this with his old glasses, probably because of the ritual he did with them. And when the gunman came into the store, he saw the shadow put his hand over the side of the gun, and it jammed. And after the gunman realized that he can't load the pistol, he got out of the store and finally got it loaded and pointed it at the older gentleman. And at the last second, he saw the shadow push the gunman's arm down to save this other old man. And Spike said he don't know what he saw, if it was a freak, spectral apparition with the liking of an old man, the Reaper changing his mind, or maybe, just maybe, a guardian angel. And he said, yup, I'm the Asu true, but I still kind of believe in angels. Hard not to be with the life I live. So, interesting part of Spike's story here is, it's really cool. That would actually even make cool for an episode or something, but he has a pair of sunglasses, does a ritual with it, ends up in a predicament where he has to wear said sunglasses, and ends up seeing basically a shadow looming around an old man that stops him from shooting another old man. I guess something you couldn't see without the special glasses. So very cool. And on the topic of shadow people, since I see Ryan saying that he saw shadow people all of his life, that is an interesting topic. I've actually seen shadow men as well, quite a few times.
I think the majority of the shadow people I've seen was in your old house.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember you and your wife freaking me out with that, especially your wife. And I won't say her name because I know. But every time she come over, it's like, oh, hey, guys. Nice to see you. And I'm like, oh my God, a dark shadow just like went through your head. What? My head? Oh yeah, man, just right fucking, you guys had me paranoid all the time. But there was something to that house, hey?
There certainly was. And I will say that, I'll reiterate, I just wrote it in chat, but my whole life, I even remember, my old friend that I went to elementary school with. I used to go out to his house, and all the time I would see shadow figures. And I'd never see them in my own house, but always I would see shadow figures in his house. And he would see them too. And I remember one time we were driving to a relative of mine's place. My mother was driving. We were kids. And he seen this huge shadow fly right at the car, like right at the windshield, to the point where he kind of shrieked and covered his face and threw his arms up as if to protect himself, and was, completely aghast that nobody else in the vehicle had seen it, that this huge dark shape had swooped at our vehicle and came right at the windshield, and he was really shaken by it. And I remember, we were really young when it happened, and I asked him over and over and over to describe it, and he tried his best to describe it one or two times, and then just refused to continue because it was just too freaky for him. And the idea with Hunter's story here, that there are these beings that are around us all the time. we don't know who they are. We don't know what they are. Um, but so many people report seeing them. Some report amorphous black blobs, or just areas of darkness in the vague shape of a man. Um, but so many people all the way around the world report these shadow beings. And the idea that I don't think I've ever personally heard a story of somebody seeing a shadow person or a being who appeared as a shadow, actually interacting with the physical world. But I got to say, it's kind of it it kind of makes you feel good. The idea that there are unseen forces, kind of looking out for your best interest.
For sure. And some, there was something that was said here. What I'm starting to do is just take people's comments and throw them into a notepad here, so I don't lose them as stuff moves down. But Breaking Glass 50 said, "I only see shadow people around certain people," and it's kind of something I want to talk to you, the audience, about, and just get your feel for this. I wonder the same thing, actually, because everybody who comes in contact with a shadow person, they generally say it's this really negative experience. The vibe is really negative. And I guess for me, I've seen shadow people as well, but I find that certain people, like it's not that I saw necessarily shadow people around these particular people, but I guess what I'm trying to say is certain people, like when you're in a certain mood, you're a certain way, and usually negative. Maybe you're mad, maybe you've had a bad day, maybe whatever. And more of this kind of thing starts to happen to you. Like referencing back when I lived in that specific house, Ryan, as well as I do, I was on the bottom up there. Like I was in a bad way. And it seemed then that a lot of our paranormal activity happened, right? And I wonder if being in such a focused negative way was maybe a conduit to that kind of activity. There's people I met that give off I tend to draw pretty strange and different people to me. Some of them just nuts. Ryan can attest to that.
Sure.
And like a lot of these people, man, they have this vibe about them, and usually stuff happens. Like if it's not flat out paranormal, it's something dramatic that where the police or ambulances are involved, or near suicides, near, you know what I mean, like just
Overdoses.
I wonder how energy happens like that. And it's just like when I get in a certain mood, like when because people pass off. Like when you have interactions with people, sometimes interactions are bad, right? And depending on the kind of person you are and what your personality type is like, sometimes it stays with you, sometimes it festers and it stews. And when that happens, even though you're the recipient of it, unfortunately that energy that's been placed on you, now you start to attract more of it. So getting out of it's really hard, because it's kind of a full circle. Because once you feel like shit, you start to like the things that you do and say, like you start snapping at people because you're pissed off, and then you know what I mean? It's like it's this vicious circle. So energy has a weird way of interacting with people, right?
That is very true. You get into a situation where like breeds like. It if you're being put down and you feel down and depressed, then that's the kind of energy and vibe that you're giving off, and you just create an environment for that. But I have to say, in all the years that I've seen all these weird, and I've seen every kind of shadow form that you can imagine. I've seen ones that look like animals. I've seen ones that look like people. I've
Blobs.
seen ones that were just, complete amorphous blobs, almost like they were just liquid shadow flowing around, and some that were perfect orbs. Um, but never once have I ever received a negative vibe from them.
You know,
There hasn't, like, I've seen quite a few things, especially when I was a kid. I used to see a lot of stuff, and I was constantly terrified as a child because if I knew if I looked into a dark room or if I looked in certain places that I would see something. I would routinely hear noises and voices and whispers, and no, I'm not a schizophrenic.
you've been tested.
I've been tested, but I see and experience all these so many things, especially as a child, that terrified the shit out of me. And at the same time, I would see these shadow forms and have continued to see these shadow forms my whole life. And I've never once received a negative vibe or feeling from any of these shadow forms. I've even watched them fly through me, and I've watched them fly through you, Will.
Well, I mean, I can answer your question right now. Why there's no evil vibes? Because you're an evil man. It's not going to feel strange to you. I mean, that's your energy, right? But
Sure.
but in all seriousness, though, even for me, and we're so alike, it's scary, Ryan. But when I've seen shadow people and stuff like that, I haven't gotten the bad vibe either. In fact, I found it. I'm just intrigued, right?
Yeah,
I'm intrigued.
that's exactly. You stare at it and you're interested, but there's not that fear.
There's not that fear, but I mean, just to make my point, I have what most people would call nightmares, right? Like when aliens are coming down and they're trying to abduct you, or maybe like there's some like apocalyptic event and stuff like that. But in my dream, I find it interesting. Like, I swear to fuck, I've had dreams where, like, the sky was red with fire and there was aliens, like, mass panic and shit like that. And in my dream, I'm just interested. In fact, I'm mad when I wake up because I want to see what happens. And, most people would find that to be like a nightmare, right? But
So what you're trying to say is not that the entities are necessarily evil or not. It's that my own inquisitiveness drowns that out.
it could be that, and it could be just you think about it, right? I mean, you got different vibrational energy, right? Well, if you're a relatively light vibrational person, you're the average, a good person, and you come into contact with, and for a shadow person, I mean, they could be gray. They don't necessarily have to be these evil, dark entities. They could be gray, right? But compared to a generally good person, maybe that feels really wrong. Maybe that, it's all relative. For you and I think we're very much in the gray, right? I mean, like, if we're being honest, I'm never going to sit here and be like, well, I donated money, and I did, like, I'd be lying to you folks if I said that. I'm not that fucking guy. I mean, if somebody comes looking for food and I got cans of food in the cupboard, like, yeah, sure. But, like, I don't go out of my way to do good things. And if I did, it would be false. It would be a lie for me. That's just not my personality type.
It'd be something for your own self-interest.
Exactly, right? Like, I'm not going to fake it. It is what it is. I am who I am, and I like who I am. Fucking gray as it is, as dark as it can be. I'm a bit of an asshole sometimes, but I like who I am, right? So, if anything, I'm transparent, right? I'm never going to lie to any. Like, if you meet me, I'm the same the day you met me, 10 years down the line. I'm me, right? But at the same time, you're not going to catch me talking behind your back and doing shit like that, right? It's just, I'm up front and I'm blunt. So I don't know where I was going with that, but...
Well, I mean, you brought up an interesting point, I think. when we're talking about these strange entities, spirits, ghosts, demons, whatever you want to call these things, especially the shadow people, is our perception of them predicated on our own individual nature?
I think so.
Is a a pure, I don't know, young Mormon girl going to see a shadow person and feel an instant sense of dread, while me, who's standing right next to her, would just be interested in, ooh, what is this?
Let me
You
ask you
know
this,
what?
Ryan. Let me ask you this: if you were to go to church right now,
Mm-hmm.
would you feel uncomfortable going through those doors?
I'm uncomfortable with the question, so yes.
Yeah, there you go. Right, and truthfully, I feel a little tinge of that myself. And I'm not on this, like, I'm not a Satanist. I'm not a atheist. I'm not a, but like, I mean, I'm definitely not of the upper better folk, right? I mean and I think that has all got to do with the energy that you are, right? I mean, I for my own family, sure. Like my son now comes before anything, and then my wife, and then my close circle. I mean, those people, in my life, I will look. I die for them, but like most of the rest of the world, nope. You know.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just. I think it's all.
We're not filled with that superhero self-sacrifice kind of. Yeah, I get
Right.
what you're saying there.
We're gray. We're gray.
We're we're gray. So the shadow people just, they're just an interesting curiosity, not something to be afeared of and to avoid.
Right. I mean, we could probably hang out and play Xbox. you know. But I mean, getting back to a couple questions that were thrown there. So that's the shadow people one. And let's see. Chunky agreed with me. So Chunky actually had, he says many demented people would always approach him on the street and try to follow him, and they can sense and are attracted to what it is that they feed off. And I think there's got to be truth to that, right? Why else would you and I, Ryan, like me especially, I draw really strange folks to me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I draw some really cool people to me too, but I draw some people that like the kind of people that I'd phone Ryan after, be like, man, I think this guy might be trying to kill me. like like
I do recall this
yeah,
is true.
he seems really nice, but he stalked me here and he was waiting outside my apartment and this kind of thing. So
isn't it interesting how you're able to attract certain types of people? Like for me, and this is weird, and I really can't explain it, but whenever I go out into a public setting, I'm very much a homebody. I'm very much a hermit. I don't like being around large groups of people. I have no problem in social situations. I just have no desire to be around large groups of people. And whenever I go out to dinner or I go out to a movie or I go out with any group of people, invariably I end up in a situation where I'm either confronted or I'm very near somebody who would be considered mentally handicapped, and a lot of the times it's children,
what?
right? It's so strange. I've had it happen so many times that I go out to dinner and a family will come in and sit down next to us and they'll have a child with Down syndrome, or we'll go out to a movie and I mean, this is a real thing that actually happened to me. Uh, my wife convinced me to go out to a movie, and I hate going to theaters because I'm a heavy smoker, and sitting in a theater is not conducive to that, and I just hate being around large groups of people. And somebody came in near the end of the movie, started walking up the stairs next to me, and then literally fell on me. Like, fell off the stairs and fell right across my shoulders. Like, their whole body was draped around me like a fucking feathered boa. And I mean, after and the guy weighed like nothing, and he was a grown ass man, and I picked him up and put him back on his feet, and it was kind of like, what the fuck, you know, like, I'm in immediate fight mode. And I looked at him, and I mean, you know, right away I knew, you know, this guy has some issues, got something going on. I didn't know what it was, but I knew right away. And it does not matter where I go. I always run into mentally handicapped people, and I'm not like I'm. It's not that I have any hate for these people. That's the furthest thing, you know. But I'm not comfortable around them. Right? As like I don't know what to say to fucking normal kids, let alone, you know, handicapped adults and kids. Like, what do I do? What do I say?
Like, what do I fucking say to that?
I'm a giant bearded, mean looking guy. I can't just you know, talk to a child without their parents being like, oh my god, get little Timmy.
Right, man, that is the weirdest fucking problem I ever heard anybody ever having. And like, honestly,
but it's true.
Why would you do this to me on a live podcast? Like, holy fuck. Oh my god. Oh, dude. Like, what am I supposed to say?
Yeah, come on, give me a coached response to that. Explain it to me.
Jesus. And you're serious, right? Like,
yeah, I'm 100% serious.
Like, I've already offended people by laughing at it. There's no way I could fucking respond to that in a way that, you know, it sounds ridiculous.
It does, but it's true. There we go. This could be an episode of Seinfeld. Yeah. Greenfeld, you are completely right.
Yeah. You know what? This is a show for Curb Your Enthusiasm. This is a situation that fucking Larry David would get himself into. Oh my Christ, Ryan. Fuck, man.
But, you know, here we're talking about people who...
I said I draw fucking, like, weird people with paranormal shit.
Here's the reason I brought
fucking draw people fall on you.
That literally happened. I think we were watching, what was it, fucking a movie I really wanted to watch. And this man got up, he lost his hat, he got up, he turned his phone on, stared directly into it, walked 10 feet and right into the fucking wall. Like, walked right into a wall.
Oh my god.
But here's the reason I brought it up. Here's the reason I brought it up.
Oh my god.
It? Oh shit! Now I got you snorting. It's all over now.
Dude. Oh my god.
I actually look really good with a human boa around my neck.
Oh yeah, you're messing my fucking beard up, you fucker. Don't hit him, he's handicapped. Oh fuck. All right.
This is the reason I brought it up. There is such a strong link between people that we perceive as being mentally handicapped and the paranormal. Right?
What?
Schizophrenics have been heralded all throughout all kinds of different cultures as being touched by the gods, as being having some kind of connection to the divine.
There is truth to it. Like people that
this is why I brought it up, right? Is that there always has been a connection between people who are quote unquote different and the paranormal. There always has been a connection.
Oh yeah, well fuck, man, it's common enough that movies have you know, have pointed it out. But it's true. Usually, I mean, this is the way it is. If I'm gonna describe it in a realistic way that I've often thought about, It's all balance. Life is balance. So if you have an issue somewhere, it's just like if you go blind, right? And then all of a sudden your hearing gets better. Or if you lose your hearing, then your vision gets better. If you're handicapped, a lot of them actually have like extreme talents somewhere, like that's like beyond norm, right? Like whether they can play the piano like nobody else, or they're like exceptionally smart with math or words or whatever it is. But that's the cost. It's all balanced. So like you take your average Joe, and of course you have average, right? So you have average, balance between your left side of your brain, your right side. Whereas you take like a creative person that are generally, really good with art and, music and creative aspects, and they suck at math, right? And vice versa. You could have someone who's great at math and logic, and they can't create anything. Like the creative aspect is just gone from them. That's generally how it is. Or you get cases where sometimes you can do both, and then you're fucked in another way. Maybe you got like my case, right? Like I've done creative shit. I've been signed to a record label. I've been on TV. I've been on the radio, but I'm stark raving fucking mad with I got anxiety. I got depression. I got all kinds of shit that I got to weed through. That makes normal things in my life a struggle. I've had big periods of my life that were really difficult because of those issues that made like everyday things that people take for granted a challenge for me, right? Just because of that. So like while I can do all these other things, I constantly have a struggle over here with that. So that's where balance comes from. And I think that like when you're talking about mentally handicapped people and having like some ability, whether that's insight with the paranormal, intuitiveness, or being able to see things that aren't normal people aren't cognitively aware of. I think that's what it is. Like it's extremes, right? It's an extreme case of like this part of your brain, but you're so heightened over here, you're practically a genius in this one thing. So it's all balance.
So Ancestral Reflections made a comment and said, Ryan, maybe you need to lay your hands upon them. Maybe you are a healer. Now, I don't know if you're being serious there. Now, I have tried my hand at Reiki healing in the past. I can't say that I've specifically performed any on the mentally handicapped, but I have been in many situations where I've been around these kinds of people, and I mean, I'm not saying anything disparaging when I say these kinds of people. I don't know how else to put it. I'm not part of the PC culture. But invariably, time and time again, so many of these, and a lot of the time it's kids, that they're just immediately attracted to me for some reason. That there's something there. So I mean, I don't know, when we're talking about awareness and paranormal, and oftentimes we talk about children and their connection with the paranormal. It's a constant theme in movies. It's a constant theme in stories and folklore. And I have to wonder if it's a matter of they haven't been programmed yet. They haven't been taught what to filter out. And perhaps with some of these people that we consider quote unquote mentally handicapped, that the same thing isn't still happening with them.
You have a good point there, Ryan.
There's some level of innocence that hasn't been corrupted yet.
I wondered that same thing. I mean, even with my son right now, And he's like super smart, man. Like he's already, he's communicating with me in different ways. Like he can, if you do like stuff with your hand, like he'll try and mimic it and he'll cough at you and stuff like that to get your attention. He's only 3 months old, right? But he knows how to get you over and do stuff that he wants you to do and stuff like that. But something I noticed that he does is oftentimes he'll like, you could have him on your lap even, and he'll just start looking up in the corner of the room and smiling at something that's not there. And, in the same way that my cat would, but is even more noticeable because he's able to smile and follow it in a way that, is not as subtle as a cat, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so I wondered that same thing, if it's possible that he can pick up on something as a child. I mean, we've all heard that before. We've covered this before. But now that I have my own little boy, I wonder if, that if there's something that he's going to see or hear that, maybe I'll notice. Maybe I'll, you know what I mean? Like maybe he can be a little bit of a divining rod for me, in that sense. And who knows? I know that he loves TV already. You put the TV on, man, he ignores me and my wife. So maybe TV will kind of ruin it a little bit. But I think there's something.
Guaranteed.
I think there's something to be said for that, though. I do think that perhaps you're right. That in people who are touched, there's this filter that doesn't get there. I mean, let's face it. Once we get, we start school and stuff like that, they start the schools, the society, they start drilling the shit into you about
the indoctrination begins.
The indoctrination, yeah, and they start basically programming you for society. And for those of us who don't, integrate that well, right? It's because, you think about it. I mean, is this really the way life was meant to be? That, we were meant to come here and work in this system, pay the government. You pay with time, right? Because that's what it comes down to, is like, here's what your time is worth. So in order to eat and live and whatever, you have to, if you want to fit in society, you're going to dedicate like half your life to doing shit you don't want to do, to pay for the things you need. I mean, if you wanted to go off and live in the woods, you can't, because it's fucking government or something like that.
You'd be a squatter.
You're a squatter, right? I mean, there's no way out, right? You're absolutely fucking trapped. So, and
so do you think that if we lived a life that was more in tune with nature, that was more natural and, filled with hardship and disease and cholera and starvation, that we would be closer to spirits?
I do, because I think that we're too in. You think about it. What's the worry that almost everybody has? It's like it jumps to the top of everybody's list, right? It's fucking money. It's fucking money. How many couples have divorced over money? It's just fucking money. It's money.
Yeah, but that's oversimplifying it, because money in our society is a form of resource consolidation, right? You don't need to drag around your shelter and your wood and your food and all your tools. You don't need to drag all this shit with you.
But what do you think about all day? Well, maybe not you, but the average Joe. It's like, well, I want the new iPhone. I want the new TV. I want the new game. It's all things. It's all things. It's the opposite of spiritual, right?
Yeah.
It's the opposite.
But I mean, that's individual, kind of misplaced.
But we're programmed that way, man. TV, everything that we interact with is advertising. Everything is advertising driven. Everything, man, from your newspapers to your radio to your TV to your internet. It's all fucking advertising to buy stuff, to buy things. It takes your mind off all the things that are important, right? I mean, how many people today are glued to their phone? I mean, God knows I'm stuck to my phone. I mean, I say this, I know it's true, but even I'm fucked with it. Like you go out to dinner, you're on your phone. You got a small lull at work, you're on your phone. You're in the living room with your spouse. The TV's on, but you're both on your phone.
So your thought is that the modern digital society that we live in is eroding our ability to connect with the world spiritually.
I think that we're not only just spiritually, but it's funny. Like the internet brought everybody together, but in an odd way, we're kind of apart, right? Because everybody is so focused on your individual thing, like your phone, for example, right? I mean, my wife do this. I mean, we had to make a rule to put our phones down. Like we look ridiculous. We go out to dinner. She's on her phone. I'm on my phone. I mean, we're both in our own little worlds when we should be there talking to one another, right? And that's not uncommon. I mean, I've had waitresses come over to me and say like how that is, it's a thing for all these different couples there. And the older generation really noticed it because they weren't part of that technological boom, right?
Yeah.
So it's really, really, it's different. Like, I mean, it's the opposite way. It's become a very materialistic, world in a lot of ways, but at the
Now,
same.
I know that this, I mean, obviously this conversation is now rolling away from the paranormal, which is fine. I mean, this is, we're here, we're around the digital campfire, me and you and all our friends here. I think it speaks to something deeper, though. I think it speaks to this subconscious desire for a level of connection that we're close to, but we haven't obtained yet. Like once you realize that little device in your pocket, as horrible and demonized as it's become, every now and then I have this little realization, this little remembrance, because it's something that I realized quite a while ago when, like 10 years ago when smartphones were just getting popular. But that little device in your pocket literally has access to all of the collective information that mankind has ever discovered and recorded. I mean, that is a very powerful and important thing. And one of my favorite sayings is, in the age of information, ignorance is a choice.
It
And it
is.
really is. Everybody has access to just vast tracts of information. I guess the important thing is, what do you do with that information? What do you choose to focus on? I mean, if you're choosing to focus on the lives of other people that you're never going to get to be, or your other people's lives that you're never going to get to live, then you're going to be filled with longing and anxiousness that you just can't cure. But I mean, I spend all day on my phone too, but I'm not sitting on Facebook looking through people's profiles. I'm checking out the latest space news, the latest technology, you know, any paranormal stories or
And
strange UFO tales.
and
And
you
I
know,
honestly, I couldn't imagine my life without it.
but Ryan, and you and I are the same with that, and I think that probably everybody in this chat right here watching the stream is probably the same. They probably wouldn't be here otherwise, because I mean that's kind of the thing we do, is we cover these strange topics and stuff like that. And there are, there's a large group. Actually, the world is getting more woken up all the time. I'm actually surprised by how widespread it's gotten. But it's not, I mean, let's face it, the powers that be have noticed that too, and that's kind of why they want to lock down the internet. I mean, the biggest mistake they ever did for them was to give, Joe Blow access to the internet, because now they don't have control. And I mean, they've talked about it, making an internet too, where, it's basically sites like Facebook and stuff like that, and you don't have access to all the stuff that we talked about.
These little controlled environments within the internet.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at how big the deep web is compared to what we can even access through conventional browsers, I mean, it's crazy.
It's the old iceberg scenario where there's 10% visible, which is the internet, and the rest of it is deep web, dark web, and intranet.
Right, and I mean there's a lot of things that have been purposely removed from the internet, like certain search terms that people, certain people don't want you to find, like in particular, political and stuff like that. That have
Yeah, like
actually
how Google removed a bunch of negative Hillary search results.
exactly right. They literally taken the key terms out of being, people being able to use them. I mean, if you take the average person, I mean, even me, I mean, I'd have to go digging. I know of a couple browsers that go beyond, but I mean, most people know the top 5 or 6, which is like, Google Chrome, Safari, Internet Explorer, Firefox, Opera, and I can't remember if there's another one, but like all the main ones, right? I mean, if you go looking, that's what you got. And the ones that you get that are integrated, like on a Samsung phone or something like that, they're just like hack. They're not even as good as those ones, but none of them got access to the really crazy stuff. So yeah, I mean, already we're in a bubble. Like, it's just nobody realizes it because you still got access to so much of it. But we're in a very small bubble of how big the internet actually is.
But really, when you think about it, the internet is really a global um, manifestation of the human consciousness. It's a human consciousness, but on a global level. So you have, all this nonsense surface stuff, like all the nonsense surface stuff you deal with people on a day-to-day basis. Oh, working hard or hardly working, Jim. How's the weather? How you doing today? How's the wife and kids? Blah blah. And it's only when you get into certain situations where you can go deeper with somebody and they start telling you about their hopes and their dreams and their ideas, and well, I think that life is like a dream, and that when we die we wake up, and there's these deeper levels, and it goes down and down and down and down. And in day-to-day life, getting to those deeper levels with people, that I mean, people that you're friendly with or you're friends with, but you just don't typically have those kinds of conversations, is kind of like using a Tor browser, right? You have to be in this very special circumstance, this very special situation where the two of you can really get into this very deep conversation about the greater meanings of things, or the deeper, darker meanings of things. And how interesting that parallels so closely with how the internet operates. That on the surface it's all sunshine and lollipops and social media and advertising and just bubblegum shit. And once you get deeper, well, that's where you get all the hopes and the fears and the dreams and the filthy dark desires, and the really deep dark questions. And it's so much like the deep web. I'm seeing a question here about what about AI, and now is this a stream of consciousness that we want to continue here, Will? Because I mean, I'm I'm a big proponent for AI. I'm,
What
I'm a
about
big
AI? I have mixed feelings on AI. Part of it, like, I mean, I'm a bit of a techie geek. I've made some really small programs and stuff like that. I got a little bit of a nerd side to me. I'm interested to see where it can go. I've seen some amazing things, but I don't want, I have enough fights with regular people. I don't know if I want to throw AI into the mix. It's like, and the last thing I want to be doing is arguing with my toaster someday. Um,
That's going to be a racial slur once the AIs.
Especially with
But
the
here's the thing.
millennials.
Here's the thing with AI is that it's coming. AI, when we talk about AI, there's many different levels of it, and what most people refer to as AI um, is what in the industry is called general artificial intelligence, where it's basically a human level AI, and that's the goal. That is the goal that a lot of these programmers and researchers are trying to attain. And if you watch any interviews with them or you read papers that they write, they're the very first ones to admit that it's very surreal for them to be working on something that may very well replace them and make them extinct.
Well, that's
Right?
just it,
Because
right?
here's the crux of the matter, is that the one thing that nobody can deny, whether it's next year, 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, or 200,000 years, or 110,000 years, um, AI, general artificial intelligence, will exist. It's going to happen. There's no avoiding that. We have, unless we nuke ourselves back to the fucking Stone Age, we will create a general intelligence. Now, from there, there are three possible outcomes. Either A, we enslave it and use it to our designs. B,
Until
it
they become
it
self-aware of
enslaves
that.
us. Well, that's what general AI is self-aware programming, is human level intelligent, completely
Well, of course
self-aware.
it's going to happen. For one, like I mean, you look at the human race. I mean, fuck. I mean, we can't even get along with people. Well, I mean, not all of us. I mean, I personally don't care who comes from where, what they look like, or whatever. But I mean, we still have racism in the world today. We still have, all like sexual identity. Nobody can just live and let live. I mean, we got all these problems all the time. I can only imagine that if AI were to take over in the future, we'd have the same race wars between Intel and AMD, right?
Yep,
I mean,
yep. But so the three outcomes are: we enslave it and be the masters, and they be the slaves, and we have a whole new master slave paradigm, like, going back hundreds of years. B, they enslave us, and we become the bottom tier species, and they inherit the earth and the solar system and beyond. Or, and this is where I think true salvation exists. And I know there's so many people going to disagree with me on this, but I really believe that this is the future, that we become some hybrid of the two, that through implants, brain implants, and the access of general AI, that human beings, general AI, will eventually merge into a single being. And in that way, the existence of each become inseparable, and the benefit of the one is the benefit of the other, and we look towards a mutual self-interest. And
so
I really think that's the only scenario that plays out in both of our favors.
so basically, along the lines of the games Deus Ex and even Crisis, really with the suit, right? Like a symbiotic relationship between.
I really do believe that. And I mean, we're doing it already with our technology, with our phones. I mean, you don't remember, I mean, we've been friends for years, and you probably couldn't rattle off my phone number, right? It's taken me years. Yes, Watchmen, transhumanism. I'm an avid transhumanist. Um, what our phones have become is something that some technologists refer to as a oh geez, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I just got a text message. I got a text message from my brother asking
Yeah, you're
why
working.
no video for Ryan. I'll take my answer on air, thank you. And the answer is, we didn't know if this was going to work tonight, so I didn't bother buying a webcam, because I'm one of those paranoid people who doesn't own a webcam, because I'm sure Mark Zuckerberg is staring at me from his bedroom through the camera.
Because he's a giant pervert, right?
Well, why else would you create Facebook if you weren't a sexual deviant?
You better hope he don't sue you.
Yeah, citation needed, or that's my
We
own
saw it
personal
on
opinion.
we saw it on Wikipedia.
WikiLeaks. Julian
WikiLeaks.
Assange made me do it.
Now he's gonna sue you.
The idea that one day that we will create a system to increase our own brain, and some technologists and futurists refer to cell phones as a neocortex. Um, because of human physiology, the human brain is as big as it can get. If our heads get any bigger, we will make our poor women explode. They'll just all die. And I mean, as of right now, um, human mortality during birth is the mother's mortality rate is fucking heads and tails above any other mammal on the planet, and it's because our heads are so big, and that's what created all of the world that you see around you, is the fact that we got these little extra parts. The the cerebral cortex, that thin layer of neurons that makes humans, that makes us have the ability for you and I to have a conversation over thousands of miles and have almost 50 people sitting in on the conversation and enjoying it with us. That the ability to do that is predicated on this thin layer of neurons that's is literally as thin as a sheet of paper, and that's what they call your cerebral cortex. And it's just this thin sheet of upper higher neurons that are wrapped around the rest of your animal brain, and somehow it pulls everything together in such a high level that we were able to have this thing that we call modern civilization. It's taken us hundreds of thousands of years to take advantage of the of this higher processes, and it's taken this race between women's pelvises or pelvises and our craniums, this kind of fucking arms race that produce us. But now we're at a point where it's maxed out. And our next step, the next thing that we did, was create technology, digital technology. And now we have these little handheld neocortexes that hold all of the images, all of the sounds, all of the notes, all of the alarms, all the schedules, can do all the math, can access all the information, all the things that you wish that you could do just with your brain by itself. Oh man, I wish I could just recall photographically everything I read last night.
I can.
You can. It's in your pocket, and at some day we will be able to install this same like better level technology as a chip in your brain. And then eventually we're going to marry that along with artificial intelligence. And Ancestral Reflections asked a question to me: would Ryan agree to be chipped? And the answer is yes. An emphatic, a head shaking up and down.
In fact, Ryan was telling me not too long ago that he absolutely wants to move his consciousness, his being, from his human body to a robot body. I mean, that's your goal in the next.
If I could do it, honestly, if I could do that, if I could migrate my consciousness out of this fragile, fleshy, blood and goo frame into a very nice, neat, organized, inorganic system that was resistant to changes in air pressure and temperature and abrasions. Oh, I love that, a Ryborg. If I could do that, I would be, I would do it. I sign me up, ghost in the shell me.
Ghost in the Shell. So now that we've we're nearing in on an hour and a half, and I gotta get up for work in the morning. I do have a very self-serving question for our audience. Are anyone in our audience gamers? Come on. Yes or no will be fine. I got a question that I'm very divided on. And Ryan's,
we're working with a very small sample size here this evening.
Ryan's been no help to me. I want to see if there's anyone else here that can help me with my question. All right, we got Omar that plays games. We got Yo Mama's Boss plays games. AM plays games. Come on, people.
Now, we're not talking about Candy Crush.
No, we're not. We're talking about like actual games. Real games.
Way to ostracize your audience, bud.
Okay. Well, okay. So let's just get to it.
Retired. Got banned last week on the PlayStation Network. Naughty boy.
Okay. Well, Anyway, here's our situation.
So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
We got a few. We got a
10,
few.
11. Well, I'm just trying to get a percentage out of 46. So
all right.
We're looking at a substantial demographic. So go ahead, ask your question.
So Ryan and I we're mainly PC gamers. Okay, like we built monster rigs. We've had consoles too, and I guess the rigs that we have now have gotten a little long in the tooth. I actually had your i7 with your 16 gigs of RAM, SSD drive, and I had GeForce 970 as an SLI, and it was pretty good for a while. And then I got a 4K TV, and I sold one of those damn cards. And of course, 4K is really fucking hard to do on one card. And when I bought those cards, they were like 500 Canadian each, which was a lot of money, but so it's like $1,000 for 2 cards. And now the fucking graphics cards are like $1,000. Like for a 1080 in Canada is like $900. Like somehow the $500 threshold jumped up to almost $1,000 because there's no competition from AMD. And I find myself in the situation: do I get a fucking PlayStation Pro and just say I'm sick of this, spending all this fucking money, especially with all the damn broken ports that have come out lately, because it's really pissed me off? Or do I just get a 1070 and then add another one for SLI? I've been wrestling with this fucking thing for at least a couple weeks, I think, and I don't know what to do. And Christmas is coming. I'm supposed to have my mind made up. So we got one for the Pro. Come on, folks. Pro or, graphics chip. Help me out.
And for those of you who are not gamers, feel free to think of a question or something that you'd like to have answered. We will be going back before we sign off here.
We'll do some back and forth questions
and go through some, because while I was going on and on there were quite a few good questions, and I want to touch on some of them.
Does anyone have a Pro here that have used it and just can give me a little bit of I guess like your impressions of what it's been like? So yeah, we got a couple. Well, actually, everybody's been saying Pro. I gotta say, I'm pretty feeling like doing that. I mean, it's gonna take me. It cost me like 1,200 Canadian to get 1070s SLI. I can go 500 with a Pro. I won't get native 4K, but same system, just 4K. Yeah, fuck it. Maybe I'm gonna do that. Ryan, are you on board? I'm trying to get him too because he plays games with me.
I was actually just reading back through the questions and letting you have your say there. What was your question?
Everyone here is saying that we should go with a Pro. And I, because we play games together, so I like it when we have the same setup.
Sure.
And so if I got a Pro, are you going to get a Pro?
Well, I have to give it some more thought, but I mean, it's definitely something that I've been leaning towards.
Maybe
Um,
these folks will play with us too.
who knows? Who knows? It'd probably be easier if we had a PlayStation, because that would be a very simple way for everybody to get on board. But this isn't a video gaming channel. Um,
Well, you know me, I had to throw a
I'm
fucking monkey wrench into the whole thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm there's so many comments back here that people have made on things that I really want to touch on.
What's that question? Okay, so question: what was your last experience of woo? What's woo?
I'm guessing like woo woo, like that's a term that I used one time that you made fun of me.
Yeah, but what does it mean? Because I can't remember what you said.
Well, woo woo is like what people the term that we'll say non-paranormal outsiders use for paranormal stuff. I'm not into any of that woo woo crap. You know.
So, is it the last like paranormal stuff that we got
Yeah,
involved? Is it?
that's what I'm assuming.
Okay, let me think. Let me think.
So okay, you think about that. I'll make a quick comment on a question that Omar posed. AI is your so-called soul program that you input. Um, it's an interesting concept if you start looking at the idea of a simulated universe. The idea that at some point in the history of the universe, a race of very advanced beings created a extremely complex quantum computer that was able to simulate the entire universe from Big Bang all the way out. And through the course of this very precise, very exact, very real simulation, a race of beings arose within the simulation that was able to create its own simulated quantum computer that it used to simulate the universe that it didn't realize was a simulated universe, and began running the simulation. Now, one of the keys of quantum computing and these kinds of simulations is that you can run them at so many times normal speed that in 5 years you can watch the entire universe be born, and from Big Bang all the way up to planets and species and blah blah blah. And so the secondary race inside of the simulation that created its own quantum computer ran the simulation and continued to watch it until inside of the simulation of the simulation, another race rose up to the level of technological advancement to where it could create its own quantum computers to simulate the universe and create a simulation of the universe in which another race of beings created their own simulation of the universe. And you get where I'm going with this. So mathematically speaking, it is so much more likely that we are living in the simulation of a simulation of a simulation of a simulation than we are actually living in the actual universe. Now, that in no way devalues our existence, because real is real. If you feel that you're real, and you love and you hurt and you experience the full range of existence insofar as you understand it, then you are real, and that's all that matters.
Okay.
But I really do. I would not be surprised if we lived in some kind of a matrix.
Okay. So
So your woo-woo experience.
my woo woo experience. I've actually. Okay. Well, it's not really weird, like paranormal weird, but I guess it was just, you know how things are strange sometimes, right? The only thing I could think of was I'm not sure if we actually came out and said this to you guys or not, but before we came back and we did like our last show, honestly, like just the certain things that came up, like our signing to our network went really bad and is not favorable actually, and with the time commitment, especially since I had my son, I really we were in discussion of whether or not we were even gonna do effed up stories anymore. Actually, like this show almost was done. It's very very close to being done. In fact, it was only when we tried this live thing, and it cut down so much time that I needed to do this. Like it made it so much easier, and to do the submissions, just to read the stories as we get them. If not for that, I think this might have been done. So as luck would have it, this just solves all of our problems. This is going to be the show from now on. But anyway, to get back to my point, we were talking about ending the show. And I mean, right up to like, how many weeks ago? Like 2 or 3 weeks ago, we did our last episode or something like that. So we were talking about ending it right up until we did that live show. And after that live show, we decided that, okay, now we got the problem. I think this is going to solve our problem, so we'll keep doing it. And the next day, I got asked to go on a mainstream radio to talk about the show. And the day after that, I got asked to be a guest on, actually, I was a guest on a local TV show. So, we went from talking about ending the show, and there was almost no, like we hadn't been doing anything for a while. The views were down, and then as soon as we said that, okay, well, we fixed the problem, now we're going to continue to do it. The next day, I was on radio, and the next day after that, TV about the show. So that's kind of a strange coincidence, I guess, because, that didn't really happen a whole lot while doing the show within the last 4 years. So yeah, that was kind of weird. Coincidence or not, because they came to me, right? Like I wasn't looking for it. It's just kind of weird. So let's see what other questions we got here.
So let's see. I've seen a few comments from Firefox. So you posted a couple of things here. Firefox 99 Florist. So a few years ago at night at like 11 or 12 p.m., my family and I were minding our own business, and we started to hear loud noises or loud hits on the roof, like with a metal object. And then he continues a little ways down, saying that his mom started feeling that it was something paranormal and started yelling stuff like, get the fuck out. Weird thing is she started to hit the ceiling with a broomstick. I'm not 100% sure what the so Ryan, you could hear a hit or two back very loud. He decided to go and see what was up. He climbed on a ladder, saw nothing, just a cat staring back at me. So yeah, that's a weird little story. Weird sounds in the night. I mean, that's something that's been with us since we lived in caves. As soon as we can't see what's around us, our mind starts running wild, and especially when we're when we're all covered in and closed in, and there's something running around outside your enclosure or making noises outside. I'm willing to bet that there's a mundane explanation for what you and your family experienced that night. And I mean, if mothers, I'm assuming that many mothers are like mine. Mothers, they have this instinctual drive to protect their young, and if for some reason they feel that their young is in danger, they will arm themselves with brooms or pans or just long store-bought Shoppers Drug Mart fingernails if they got to protect their young. And if that means screaming obscenities into the night and beating on the ceiling with a broomstick, then in my experience, they damn well will.
Okay, so there's a couple other questions here.
Shoot.
So Greenfelds has a question, and it was: do you guys prefer that when you die there is a heaven and hell, or that it would be like sleeping for all eternity? And I'm gonna say I got mixed thoughts on that. Right? Because
well, yeah, it all depends on where you're going.
It all
right?
depends on where you're going. Because
if there's a hell, I want to sleep forever and never wake up. If there's a heaven, I want to go there because my version of heaven is heavily perverted and intoxicated.
Well, I'll tell you this. One of my favorite subjects actually is near-death experiences, and I think it's because I know it's inevitable. You know, I know it's a bridge I'm going to have to cross, and I'm particularly interested in the negative ones because I keep reading them and thinking like, well, how bad are they? Could I handle that? Like, if I end up there, could I handle that? And not that I think I'm a terrible person, but, you know, I've heard of good people going to bad places and vice versa. And I
don't think there's many people that would say that you're necessarily a good person.
Yeah, so I'm really in the middle here, right? I'm teetering on the middle of uncertainty. And anyway, I have let me just say this. I've read stories that I know are true. I've actually got a family member where they got to tell me some stuff, and it absolutely fucking terrifies me to think that I could go there. Like
you're talking about your grandfather.
No, not my grandfather, but it is a family member. It wasn't a pleasant one. And anyway, it fucking, man, I tell you, I'll never be comfortable with it. I mean, I'll be on my deathbed saying, no, not now. I'll be screaming. They'll have to, like, I'll be taken, kicking, and screaming for sure. So yeah, I mean, if I'm going to hell, I hope I sleep for eternity. If not, then, well, I guess I hope I go to heaven. You know, just to re-summarize what Ryan said. So that's my thoughts on that. The other question was from, I was just looking at it, the LIKP. Will you guys eventually have guests again? You know, I think we've had good experiences with guests, but we've had a lot of problems with getting our guests here. We've actually wasted a lot of time, just, you know, like people who say they're going to be a guest and then, you know, we get here, they don't show up. I mean, sometimes we've even given them second and third tries, and then that don't happen. I mean, there's been two different guests.
And we're talking about professionals and non-professionals alike.
Both. And
in fact, I think we've had more bad experience with professionals than the non-professionals.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'll tell you this. I mean, while we're being open and honest here, I mean, I'm transparent, am I not? I fucking say what I think. Everybody knows what I think. We've had two different paranormal show hosts who have come to us and asked us if we'd have them on our show, and then they'd have us on their show. And the whole idea being that it would be a you know, it'd be good for both of us. We'd get introduced to their audience, they'd get introduced to ours. So we did that with Brent and Son, and then as soon as we did the show with him, he never got back to us ever about going on a show with him. And then the same thing happened with Kelly Coffey. So that's two different ones that have you know, made that thing with us, and then, you know, so
and nothing against them, but that's just the facts of the matter in both of those instances.
And that's the typical shit that happens to us. We've also had you know, we've been asked, you know, to go on, I'm not going to say what they are, but some real fucking popular radio shows and shit like that. And then they get us to jump through all these hoops, which we do, and then we don't hear back from them. It's like, you know, I'm at the point now where I don't want to waste any fucking time with anybody unless, you know, like I actually like what me and Ron does, because we don't have to rely on anybody else, and we show up, right? We show up and we do our thing. You know, we've had great guests for sure. We've had, you know, great times with certain guests, but we've had so many people fuck around with us and just eat away our time and shit like that, that it's really turned us off. In fact, just speaking off the top of my head, if we were to have guests, I think what I'd like to do is what we would do is probably have a do it live like this, and we could get you, like, if anybody wanted us to call them, and they could have a little piece, like like the call-in shows like Art Bell and stuff, and you could like instant message us or email us your phone number, and we could call you right on the show, right? And you'd be
Yeah, I think that would be cool. I just seen something pop up there. Didn't Samhain take that Desert Witch story away from you?
I don't know. I don't follow his thing.
Yeah. He never took anything away from us. He may have um, used that story on his own channel, but that was a submission made to us by a listener, and as far as I know, it's a completely unique story that was sent to us. So if they've gone off and talked to him on their own accord, maybe, I don't know. Will and I don't follow anybody else's channels in that way. Now, oh, you got something to add to that?
No, I was
Because
just
Hunter got a pretty fantastic question there. Did you see it?
no.
If hunting paranormal creatures was an actual paying job, think monster hunting, would you guys do it?
Of course we would do it. We almost did it on TV.
We almost had a TV show hunting down aliens. When Will and I lived in the same place, we routinely went out and sought the paranormal. We went out and put ourselves in situations, and used all the knowledge that we had at our disposal to create paranormal situations and get us into it. So I'd have to say, personally, yes.
Honestly, I think if you and I lived in the same place, this show would have taken a turn where some episodes probably would have been me and you out in the field trying to capture something. I really do, right? Because, I mean, when we lived in the same place, we were always, fucking with this and fucking with that. I mean, that's how a lot of our experiences started, right? It's like playing around with the occult, trying to create spirit radios and all different kinds of shit like that. So for sure, I think if we lived in the same place, that's what the show probably would be. We'd get your brother to chase us around with a camera.
With a camera, yeah.
We'd be the trailer park boys of the paranormal world.
It'd be Supernatural meets Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the LIKP, 2 extra parts of the story were told. So again, if we were told by the original teller of the Desert Witch story that there was more to it, and that they would post more. I don't think we ever received any more submissions from them, but if they did go to his channel and tell more of their story, then perhaps. So I guess we'll tie that question up there, because there are lots of other ones. Do you see one there you want to answer?
Yeah, so I got one from Dreaming Mysterica, and she said, I know that we're doing live shows now, but are we going to get Ryan's Wendigo story? So that, I hope so. Now that's up to Ryan to say if we're going to do that one.
Yes. Yeah, that will happen. The timetable, of course, has been all tossed up in the air, but we will do a episode on the Wendigo.
Well, yeah, I'm glad. And now I got time to research it, because at that time I was so engulfed into the Japanese, the crazy Japanese stories that I wouldn't have had time. I wouldn't have had time to do that. Let's see what else we got here. We'll answer a couple more questions before we head off, I guess. It always scared me that we don't get the shotguns and salt Ryan and Will. I'd love to. I wish I had a shotgun.
That's a common trope in the Supernatural series, which I'm a huge fan of. I love that show. I've been watching it for Jesus, how long has it been on? Like a decade or something. But they pack salt into shotguns, and that way they can shoot ghosts.
Well, I was just laughing at Spike's comment there. If you guys capture Bigfoot, don't send him to a porn studio. I was like,
Yeah, no.
I can't say I planned it. Can you imagine the actress's response? Like, so who's the John this time? What the fuck? You know?
Well, I mean, Ron Jeremy had
He's
a full
Italian.
career, so Bigfoot Bigfoot would do all right.
They're about as hairy, I guess. You know?
Jesus. All right, let's move on.
Let's see. Imagine what because of blah 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 blah. Wendigo, yes, you guys believe in the alien abductions? Yes, I do believe in the alien abduction stories. Actually, out of all the different paranormal stories that we do, I mean the UFO alien one is probably the one I've had the closest experience with. You know, I've seen UFOs and stuff like that. So,
and there does exist a scenario where I may have been part and parcel of an abduction myself.
really, do I know about this? The missing
Yeah,
pond?
it's the whole bog thing.
The bog thing. Okay, yeah, that was a
Yeah,
cool story.
when my cousin and I were in the bog and we were camping out there overnight, and in the morning we got up, packed up everything, and then went back to his house. And then his father continued to, kind of tease us for not staying out there all night, which we didn't understand because we stayed out there all night. And he, went on to explain that he had gone out at like 2 o'clock in the morning to check on us, because we were camping at a well, not a fishing spot, but at a eeling spot, place where we used to catch eels. And it was a very specific place that we had gone to many times, so there was no confusion as to where that may have been. But he went out there and claims that there was no. We were in a tent and we had a four-wheeler, a quad, and he claims that there was no quad, there was no tent, there was no nothing. And he looked up and down for us, couldn't find us, and came back home. But we were we thought we were there the whole night. So to this day, I still don't have an explanation for it. In fact, when I was in Newfoundland this summer, I was planning to kind of sit down and have a private conversation with my uncle about it. But he lives in a little outpour community, and when I went to visit, unfortunately, he was away for work, and I wasn't able to kind of corner him. And I'm kind of uncomfortable about doing it over the phone because it's kind of a weird thing. And I kind of feel if he sees my face while I'm asking the question, that he'll take it a little more seriously than I think he otherwise would.
Okay. Well,
So I think there is a possibility that at that time that I may have been abducted. There were stories circulating about that area, and very, very intense UFO sightings.
yeah, that was a cool story. You should get that regression shit done.
Hypnotic regression.
Hypnotic regression.
I'm rather immune to hypnosis. I do believe, like, I have to focus very diligently.
So do that.
I've tried it a couple of times, and 90% of the time it's been unsuccessful.
Well, that
I tried again. I just don't know of anybody around who can do it.
well, that being the case, we got 10 minutes until it's 2 hours, and seeing as how I'd like to have a nice even 2 hours, how would everybody like it if I just shared one last short story? Because, man, we got a ton of user submitted stories, and I feel guilty that they're not out there. So how about we do one little short one, and we'll clue it up there, And yes, Yo Mama's Boss, I have. Actually, I'll answer that. I'm gonna take that and put it at the end. So when I finish my story, I'll tell you a little bit about it. If I can copy paste, because the window keeps moving. All right. All right. So this story comes from Matt Flowers, and I got this on August 29th. So I mean I'm just going backwards, but I mean you could see I got a lot of submissions to catch up on here. So anyway, this came from Matt Flowers back in August, and finally getting it to it now. So here's his story. When Matt was 5 years old, his uncle passed away while he was attending university in Ottawa. That's Canada. He was pretty close with his uncle since he was younger, and his uncle was actually younger than his dad, and it was a lot of fun, right? I guess they connected. And anyway, he was fast asleep in bed one night when he suddenly woke up, and he remembers being vaguely cold in his bedroom. And he said his door was open because as a kid he was really afraid of the dark. So his mom would actually leave the bathroom light on, so I guess the light from the hallway would reach into his room, and it made him feel better, and he could sleep. So as he was laying there, his uncle, who was named Brad, he was standing in his doorway. And at first he kind of looked like TV static. And if you remember what that used to look like, back, I picture like the old TVs. I know it happens on the new ones too, but all that fuzz is like white and black mishmash going all over your TV. So that's what he was seeing, and in the shape of his uncle standing in the doorway. And where you're seeing something in the dark, it has this look to it, but he could tell that it was him. And he said he walked toward him, and he got clearer, and he smiled and quietly said, "Uncle Brad," because as far as he knew, he was actually supposed to be at university. But being 5 years old, right? I mean, it didn't hit him the same way. Five-year-olds don't think the same way as older. It doesn't always have to be logical and grounded in reality. So he said his uncle knelt down by his bed. He gave him a big hug, and he said, "I have to go away for a while, but you be a good boy for me, okay?" And he said he smiled back at him, and he agreed that he would be a good boy. And the next morning he woke up with a new teddy bear, and it was in the bed with him. And he treasured this teddy bear for his whole life, but it wasn't there before. So he woke up with this strange teddy bear. And he has since passed it down to his nephew, and hopefully one day to his own son. And he likes to think that his Uncle Brad is with him in a small way, in the form of a soft, fuzzy teddy bear. So, yeah, that is Matt Flowers' story. His dead uncle seemed to have visited him in his room and left a teddy bear.
I mean, on the surface of it, it's a very touching, heartfelt tale, of course. But when you really look into it, I mean, that is a very intense kind of ghost story.
Well, it's manifested too, right? He manifested.
Well, exactly. He physically manifested an object, or and I mean, there's no science when it comes to understanding the spirit world, but insofar as we can kind of quantify it as being an actual phenomenon, manifesting physical objects is something very rare as far as I know. I mean, the most that spirits could manage for a long time, well, not for a long time, but one of the biggest physical phenomenons you hear about is something like ectoplasm, and it's just these spirits are able to manifest some kind of viscous goo.
Yeah. So, like you said, it's profound in the fact that there's manifestation. It takes a lot of energy for something like that to happen. And ectoplasm being that was a big staple way back when, hey? Something that you don't
Yes.
really hear of these days.
Now, and I mean, that's a tough one because it was a staple during a time when the kind of parlor magic um, scam artistry was really popular.
Yeah, true. So I'm gonna get back to there's one last question here,
Sure.
and your mama's boss asked, "Have you ever had a demonic experience?" Well,
Ooh.
I don't know if it's demonic exactly, but let me just say this, okay? Like when me and Ryan met,
Ryan and I.
Ryan and I. Don't be one of those people. but it,
You're going to make me look bad now. I had to do it to you first.
but anyway, well, no, it's not going to make you look. Well, maybe, and we'll see. But Ryan, Ryan was deeply into the occult. In fact, he was a theistic Satanist. He had the big Baphomet on his arm. He was, neck deep into this stuff. And of course, me being who I am, I was very interested in the stuff. Like I didn't necessarily. I mean, even true today. Like I'm interested in a lot of things that I don't necessarily want to partake in, but I'm interested to read and learn about and stuff like that. But as Ryan and I became good friends, of course Ryan wanted me to be involved, and he I guess he involved me in the same way that I involved him in like my little musical projects and stuff like that. That's what friends do, right? You involve them in the stuff that you do and that you're passionate about. And I'll tell you this, man, like when Ryan and I were doing like the occult stuff, they were some of the darkest fucking days of anything that I think we've done. We've had so many paranormal experiences at that time, but it's something really strange. I mean, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but so way back then, I was into music and stuff like that. I did the demo stuff, and for the longest time I was getting nowhere. And do you want to know something? After we'd done this stuff, we'd done these rituals.
After you sold your soul to the devil.
After I did the thing, which I don't even think counts. But anyway, after I did that, I had an unusual turn of luck where I was getting on commercial radio, winning grants, all kinds of shit like that.
After I taught you how to sell your soul to the devil.
After he taught me how to sell my soul to the devil. But I remember for weeks after that, felt darker than any other time of existence for me.
That's saying a lot. You guys don't know, but this is a dude who lived in a fucking well of depression from the moment I met him.
Yep.
And somehow I've made that worse.
Let me just say this: there's no feeling in the world like thinking that you had actually lost your soul. There's nothing I can say that can articulate, that can make you think that you could even get a tinkling of what that felt like. And because truthfully, that whole thing, I wasn't going to do it. Ryan put me on the spot. That's why I kind of laugh at the way that the demonic possession thing got really popular, and Ryan didn't want to talk about it, because for me that's kind of like karma. Right? Because Ryan put me in that situation and he pushed me to do it, and it was awful. It took like 10 years or at least seven of a lot of work on my part mentally to build myself back and get completely away from it. It took a long time to fucking get away from that, and it's still something that kind of sticks in my head. But we saw a lot of strange shit during that time, and I felt a lot of strange stuff. There was a presence I felt that I haven't felt since I got out of it. That was really, I don't know how to explain it. It was really, really fucking dark, and it felt really, really hopeless. And yeah,
And to your credit, you decided to remove yourself from that, even though you thought that when you did that, that I was going to turn on you.
oh yeah, I thought, well, like, I mean, Ryan was so in that, so into it, that I thought when I told him that I was getting out, that he would never talk to me again. Like, I mean, he was like, so it was such an important part of his life. Like, it was his religion. And that's why, like, if you guys had ever noticed or wondered why Ryan is so anti fucking religious, like, anytime anybody brings this stuff up, it's because he, like, he's
I was a hardcore theistic Satanist for a long time,
he was. And I mean, even
and a lot of those things still live in me today.
a lot of those things do. So, like, as we got out of it, like, I did a full 180. I came back. I've found God again. It took a lot of work. There's things I understand now that I wouldn't understand had I not gone through that process. A whole lot of stuff that I learned, actually. But even now, it's something that is like a scar that's left with me. And with Ryan, when you guys mention this stuff, like, I know why Ryan is the way he is. Like, I mean, once I got out of it and I told him, and I poked so many holes in that fucking cult. I poked so many fucking holes, and I knew that I was right, and I knew that Ryan knew that what I said was true. But I thought he was never going to talk to me again, and it was really surprising when some time had actually elapsed, and when I talked to him again, it actually did come up, and I had found that he had left, and he found the holes in it too. Now, that being said, while we left that, we did take different paths in where we went, where I think for a long time both you and I were just lost, and
Through my experience with theistic Satanism, I learned a lot about meditation and my own personal power. And I greatly grew to resent the idea of praying to a being and asking for his help. Whereas the real core of the kind of Satanism that I was practicing was all about your own personal power and how you don't ask a god or a higher being to do something for you as much as you ask them to guide you to being able to do it for yourself. And the years, because I mean, I practiced my theistic Satanism, my version of it, for a very long time. And I still kind of do to this day. However, I've dropped all pretense of names and symbols and all of that other things. Because through the course of studying theistic Satanism, I learned a lot about meditation. And during that time, I was very much a purist. And that was one of the weird sides of this kind of Satanism, was that the use of drugs and alcohol was very much looked down upon. And
that's not who you are.
Yeah. And as a result, I didn't touch drugs and alcohol for a long time, and I focused solely on meditation. And I achieved some really way out there, trippy fucking states and had some really wild experiences. And in what I feel, what I believe is that I came in contact with non-human intelligences at certain points. Briefly, it's not like anything that they would have you believe in the movies or any of that shit. That, we're talking about something that's so outside of the human experience that communication itself is difficult. even if there is some kind of a mutual understanding. And as Will moved into his stream of thought on those things, the Kundalini, those were exercises that I worked on quite extensively.
You got me to work with them too.
What's that?
You got me to work with them too.
Yep.
Yep.
I did a lot of the how's it pronounced? The Merkaba.
Trying to achieve Godhead.
Well, that's the Kundalini, right? And that was the whole idea. And I really still believe in that. I really believe in the individual and the individual's ability um, to rise up above their station and to become more. And there's never been anything in any of the other major religions that have really spoke out to me in that way. I've always been an individual. I've always been about my own strength, my own power, and what I can personally achieve. And the idea that I need this parent figure like, God or Buddha or Muhammad or Allah or Jehovah or whatever, to help guide me along has always bothered me. And I guess I just like the individualism that Satanism represented for me at the time. But that very specific particular part of it is behind me, and I'm very much in the mind of being my own sovereign being, and using my own force of will and focus and knowledge to get what I want out of this world and in the next, if that's possible.
Yeah. So Ryan and I were on the same page with so many things, but there are. This is a trail that I think we've branched off a little bit. To a degree. I think we still see the merit in each other's points of view, but we've definitely, we've strayed. But I think that's a good point that somebody pointed out, is that everybody takes their own journey, and I don't think that religion was ever meant to be, spoon fed to you. I don't think you can get it that way. I think, you talk about what's important in life, and people talk about how hard they work for their jobs, for their families, for their education. And nobody talks about how hard it is to grow your spiritualism. And a lot of people who go to church, it's just a thing you do. You go there, you repeat what you're told to repeat. I can't go to church, even though I've come back full circle, and I do believe in God, and I have a relationship with Jesus and stuff like that. In my own way, I can't go to church because I absolutely fucking hate the stand up, sit down, and the droning of "and also with you," and also it's just as bad as a fucking cult the way it is. It grosses me out. I don't like it.
Well, it's all about inclusivity and indoctrination.
Yeah, see, I don't like that.
I will say that even though I have my own views on the matter, I think that the truth of spirituality lies in a well of understanding that is so deep that the average person would struggle very much if they were to look in the direct face of it. That each of the world's religions, and I mean all of them, right? I mean, there's like 62,000 fucking gods that are currently being worshipped on the face of this planet right now, and however many religions that represents, I don't know, but I think that each and every one of them is a facet of something so much bigger and so much greater and so much further beyond what you think it is and what any of us can think it is, because the level of conceit that you would have to have, and not just conceit, but self-deception that you would have to have in order to believe that you have the answer of what is beyond this life.
I agree with you 100%, Ron. Do you know what I've come across? I think you'll agree with me on this. I think there are nuggets of truth everywhere, and the whole point...
It's just fucking hidden everywhere. That's right. Every single one of these, and I'll throw a little anecdote here, because it's a story. This happened to me. It was a good friend of mine, a person I've referred to as the shaman, and he was, this very much very intelligent, very normal kind of guy, except he was very deep into spirituality, and you'd never look at it. You'd never think about looking at him. He was just this fat, kind of dumpy, stupid-looking electrician, and the guy was so in touch with his inner spirit that it was fucking moving, and he did an ayahuasca. I don't know what to call it, tour, I guess. A shaman came to Calgary, and he paid a bunch of money and went and sat in a room and took ayahuasca. And ayahuasca being I believe it's a Peruvian Amazon substance. Anyways, it contains a chemical called DMT, dimethyltryptamine. Some say this is what your brain is flooded with when you die and when you have certain types of dreams, linked to the pineal gland and all that. But the crux of the story was that the spirit of ayahuasca came to him during his experience, which was, I could talk for probably 3 hours on his experience alone. But this one little part of it was that the spirit of ayahuasca came to him and said, here's all the world religions from beginning to end. And he explained it to me in very shallow terms, because he said there was no way to really get the information across to me. That he was shown all these different world religions, and that each one he was shown that he understood to a depth that he previously never understood, and that how each one was just a single line of text in this book that was spirituality. That every religion was just a single line of text, not a single sentence or a single paragraph or whatever. It was a single line of text in not even the book. He said the volumes of spirituality. Oh wait, did we go offline?
No, why?
Can everybody hear us? No audio or video. It says the stream is offline.
It says stream resumed for me. Is the stream back? Can you guys see it? It's back. It must have went offline. It was probably a hitch in the internet.
Glitch in the Matrix. They don't want us telling the secrets.
Yeah.
Now you know that we're glomming onto the truth here.
There you go. Well, I don't know if anybody heard what I said, but I guess the point, I'll just say it again in case it wasn't said.
Yeah, you're making a good point. Continue.
Yeah, the point is that, we work so hard for our jobs and our money and our family, and it's just this accepted notion that we go to church, and if you participate, then that's all you need to do for your spirituality, when your spirituality seems to be the main point of why we're here, is what happens to our spirit when we die. It's like what we make of ourselves, what we learn. So it stands to reason that is the most important part. So I don't think that just going and participating and being spoon-fed is enough. I mean, we work harder for the lazy things in life, like your job, your wife, your kids. That's all just a part leading up to what your spirit is and what you're growing. That's just a part of this experience. I think with our spirit, you have to work harder with that than anything. And I guess that's why for me, I've been all the way, I've read so many different religions. I've even gone with you, Ryan, through the Satanism stuff, and I haven't stuck anywhere. I do know that there's nuggets of truth everywhere, but I can't stop looking because it seems like I know somewhere in the back of my head, I know that your spirituality is the most important aspect of this experience we call life. So,
But now I'll ask you this: do you think that it's something that people need to necessarily focus on in order to be successful at?
well,
There's so many people who live. I mean, like we've already established at the beginning of the stream that you and I are not what the world would consider good people, right?
yeah,
I mean, we're all right people. We're not we're decent run of the middle line people, but we're not good people. And
so humbling just to say it like
well,
that.
fuck, if you can't call it how it is, right? What are you doing on the internet?
Yeah.
If people are just living their lives, with goodness in their heart, which I'll fully admit I don't do. I'm wrathful and all the other
Vengeful and
vengeful and
angry.
all those other bad things. Um, but for those people who out there, they live lives filled with love and caring, and they look after all those that they can and all those things. I mean that's an ideal world, really, and a world full of people like that.
It is, but my
It's
argument,
just too hard.
my argument being, how many have we talked to with, people who have died and come back, and how many stories have we read? And it seems like, the whole point of life is what you do with your spirit. I mean, to the point where our bodies are so special, this experience, like supposedly that you can only actually, grow your spirit inside this body to the point of that's why demons want to possess us. That's why there's something special about our bodies and being here that all the demons want to get into, that dead spirits that want to get into, because it's allegedly the only way that you can grow your spirit. And only by growing your spirit when you're outside of your body can you ascend to the higher places that would vibrate with your frequency. So I think it would be a waste to just come down and ignore it and like, yeah, maybe you're a good person or whatever, but we don't know enough about it. Like it's a wasted opportunity. If all that's true, then I think that's the whole point. I mean, life is a learning experience. You don't come down as like, well, I can learn, but fuck it. That's the equivalent of the guy that's like, well, you can go to university if you want, or you can just go get a minimum wage job, right? I mean, there's a payoff there if you work for it. I think that's the I think that's how it works. I mean, as well as I do. Generally, for people, you get what you work for, right?
Sarah Sim, I think the point that Will's making there is that the purpose of the physical body in the context that he's speaking about would be to reach the creator's level. That's one thing that Howard Storm said to me that really resonated with me deeply. And if any of you haven't heard that episode, go back and look for it. Is it called Howard Storm or Father Storm? I can't remember what it's called.
I think it's a hellish near-death experience with Howard
Hellish
Storm.
near-death experience. But it's with Howard Storm. It's probably in the keywords. So if you just effed up stories, Howard Storm, it would probably come up. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make was that he hit on something that really resonated with me deeply. That when he was dead and he was speaking with Jesus or God or the angels or whoever the fuck he was talking to, they told him that the whole point was to live your life, die, be incarnated in a different life, most likely not on Earth, and continue on up the ladder until you got to the point where you were able to, I believe the way he put it, correct me if I'm wrong, was participate in creation. That was the ultimate goal, was that once you reach that level, that I'm not saying that once you reach the level of the creator, if there is such a thing, and I'm not going to say if there is or not, but if there is such a thing as a creator, we're talking about an entity, a being, of such an omnipotence, that we can't even comprehend a one billionth of its consciousness, at our current level, and that if we're going to approach that level, that we would eventually get to participate in creation with the creator. And I think that was one of my favorite parts of our talk with Howard Storm.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a very deep discussion that, I mean, honestly, we could probably talk for all night, but I do have to get to bed, get to work in the morning. So I do want to thank everybody for coming out, and it's been really cool actually getting to have
It's been fantastic. I mean, the fact that we just pulled the trigger on this for out of nowhere, just, I mean, we were basically testing our ability to do this, fired it up, and people jumped in, and we were like, yeah, let's do this. And so thank you so much, everybody who came and spent the night with us here. I mean, I know that there's a lot fewer people watching now than earlier, but the fact that so many of you stuck it out with us through all of this, thank you so much.
Yeah,
you guys are amazing.
Like, honestly, this is what we had wanted to do for a long time, and just for various reasons, we just couldn't get it to work. But this is the new way. So I know some of you guys have dropped in like midway or near the end, but this is what Effed Up Stories was always meant to be. We always had hoped. I mean, when I made it with the idea that it was going to be user submitted stories, and then the podcasts were going to be all user submitted podcasts. And starting out, it was slow, so we just started doing other stuff, and then it started to snowball, and we kind of lost sight of what it was meant to be. But now, finally, I think we've reached that point where we're just going to be, it's all going to be about you guys. So I'm going to be getting through all the different user submissions that we haven't done yet. I mean, I got through 3 tonight. So keep sending in your stories, because we're really going to be doing them like every show now, generally. And what we're going to do, like, I mean, tonight was kind of random. We just we got to set up. It's like, fuck it, let's just stream a show, and if anyone shows up, fine. But from now on, just so you're aware, we're gonna have a show 5:30 p.m. PST time every Monday, and every now and then I think we might just do a random one, like if like a Thursday or Friday comes and we got some extra time, we might just pop on and do it. But Monday, at least, you can count on at 5:30 p.m. PST time, we're going to be doing these live shows. So yeah, get your stories in if you have any, and or questions, anything that you want us to say in the show. And maybe what we'll do is we'll set aside like a segment to answer questions from email and stuff like that. Really, really cool talking to you guys on the fly. Very, very, very cool. So thanks, guys, for showing up, and we'll catch you next time.
It is a special, different experience, isn't it? Being able to connect with people, not just through comments, but in real time.
Well, I always wanted to make them a part of the show. I mean, that was really the next step, right? To make the audience a part of the show, so that that's what I envisioned with the logo when I reinvented it, and I said, the online campfire. And that's how I wanted to do this. This is the online campfire where, everybody sits around this fire. Everybody has input. We're just a bunch of people sitting around this online campfire, sharing ghost stories, sharing ideas. Obviously, we live in different parts of the world, so the internet lets us do this in a way where we can all kind of come together.
Yeah, and so going forward, again, we're going to try to really get onto a schedule where you guys know when to expect us, and we're maybe a little better prepared to do a longer show, or well, not a longer show because this show's been going on 2 hours.
2.5.
2.5. Yeah, we've been on Skype now 3 hours. But this has been fantastic. It is so great having everybody along for the ride, and I think that this is the obvious evolution, next step form for Effed Up Stories. So thank you so much, everybody, for being with us here tonight, sharing this time with us and sharing these stories. What do we got?
I'm just laughing at the LIKP said he wants to be your Bigfoot of love. That's pretty good. So,
oh man.
So if you have an interesting story for me tomorrow when you wake up, text me. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I'm sure you would. I'm sure it'd be really private and wouldn't make its way all over the internet.
Oh, it would. It would. But thanks, guys, for coming out. And yeah, so be here if you like this, people are digging it, then Monday, 5:30 PST time, that's going to be our regular time. And every now and then we'll surprise you throughout the week with an extra episode here or there. So good night, and have a good one.
Good night, everybody.